Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on transforming interview scheduling and saving recruiters 5 hours per week. A quick introduction from me. My name's Mark. I'm the head of talent at Chronify. I've been here for 2.5 years now, but before that, I spent just over 10 years in recruitment, both agency and in-house. I also ran my own agency for a while as well. We've also got Dennis joining us. Dennis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Yes, thank you, Mark. I'm Dennis. I'm with Chronify for about a year now. Started as an SDR, now an account executive, and soon to be a full-fledged account executive. And I've been speaking to a lot of recruiters on a daily basis now, and I've been hearing a lot of their insights and what they need to improve, mostly around admin work. So, yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much.
Great. And finally, we've got Kat, who's our head of marketing, who is our technical support of the day as well. So this webinar is all about saving recruiters time. We're going to be talking about and demonstrating a few topics, including rescheduling, panel interviews, candidate experience, reporting, and integrations and implementations. Now, they might sound like pretty dry topics, but I promise that when you've seen what Dennis has to show you, you'll be as excited about these things as we are. We also want this to be an interactive webinar. We've got some polls because we really want to hear from you all and make the conversation more relevant. So if you have any questions along the way, please pop them into the chat or send a direct message over to Kat. She'll be answering them live and I'll be sweeping anything else up along the way. So let's dive right into it. On the subject of rescheduling, the first poll is, how do you deal with rescheduling? I'll just give it a minute for the answers to come through.
Already see the emails back and forth. That's one that's been coming a lot up in my conversation with prospects. So good to see that.
The tried and true, the classic method, right?
Yeah.
Emails back and forth. Cool.
Not a lot of coordinators. That's interesting.
Yeah, good point. Emails back and forth, the popular option there. Thank you everyone for contributing to that. So I guess I've got a bit of a story really to share on that. Back from my recruitment days, I always used to struggle with rescheduling, particularly for very senior positions. People are busy, right? I can certainly recall a candidate needing to reschedule a final interview twice before the hiring manager just decided to cancel the interview altogether, just completely withdraw that application. He said at the time it gave a negative impression that someone wanted to reschedule. Now, I was pretty confident, or as confident as I could be, that rescheduling was for a justified reason, but because it took so long to book an interview, it felt like it was never going to happen. So at the time, the complication of rescheduling cost us the opportunity to hire that person. So my question, Dennis, for you is, how could someone in my role solve this problem with Chronify?
Thanks, Mark, for that question. That's a really interesting and important topic. Rescheduling, of course, when you're scheduling manual interviews, can take up a lot of time. Let me just start sharing my screen so I can show you how we solve that with Chronify. Hope everyone can see that. So Chronify works with a lot of different ATS, so applicant tracking systems. And even if you don't have an ATS, you can still use Chronify on top of Outlook and Gmail. But for in this example, I wanted to show you how it looks like inside Greenhouse. We also have full integration with SmartRecruiters, Lever, Workday, and Bamboo HR. Just to give you a clear image how it looks like. So to reschedule an interview, we first have to schedule an interview. So let's move the candidate through different stages. With Chronify, you can even automate the steps within the stages. So if I move it to the phone screen, it will automatically fire off an email with a self-scheduling link. So that's a really good way to automate it. But sometimes you need to go a little bit off books because not all your hiring managers are always available. So let's move it to the different stage. And if I want to do an ad hoc scheduling link with multiple hiring managers, I would just create a self-scheduling link through the extension. So up here, I have the option to schedule something for myself, someone else, or a group. In this case, I want to choose for someone else. And I want to add in Elizabeth as well. I'm going to ignore availability for a second. I'm doing that because a lot of times hiring managers, like I mentioned, are blocked out of their calendars. And this is a very common problem. How we solve that is basically having a common understanding between the recruiters and hiring managers really helps in this case, because if you say your hiring manager needs to be available for 1 or 2 afternoons in a week for interviews, they can block it off in their calendars. And we have the unique capability to override those block times in their calendars. So if I scroll down, I can send the availability for the next 7 days, but also choose custom hours, whether Mark is free and also when he's busy. So as you can see, the gray squares are all the busy ones. I can choose whether Mark is busy or not, and they will open up. Still, some of them are gray. That's because they're already booked interviews. So you never have double booked interviews. I copy the link and I paste it into the email. And this is what the candidate will see. So I'm just going to choose the first option. Event runners are made up companies, can be any company with your own branding in your own colors. Time zones automatically recognized, and then the language of this page can be translated in 17 different languages, depending on the browser settings. So now it's been scheduled in. You talked about rescheduling. Now it's very easy for the candidate just to go ahead and back to the same link and click on reschedule, or in the calendar event, there's also a link to the rescheduling, and they can just click reschedule, and the time slot that we've picked before is now gone because this is real-time availability. If the hiring manager decides to reschedule, we can go into the scheduling dashboard. Usually what happens is that the hiring manager reaches out to the candidate to then give the option to the candidate to reschedule. That's of course the best candidate experience, because then you're taking their time in consideration. But what you can also do is you can cancel the request here. And because it's a custom hour slot, there's no option for the cancel and reschedule. That's only when you're sending out availability for the next 7 or 14 days. I will explain that a little bit later on when I'm showing the panel interview scheduling. So because this is a full integration, it will also reflect back into Greenhouse, the interview data, I mean. So as you can see, the interview is at 12 p.m. with Mark and Elizabeth, and it will also trigger any existing workflows. So if you have set up scorecards, feedback forms, however the ATS calls it, it will be automatically triggered with Chronify. So far, so good. I know this has been a lot of information, but over to you, Mark.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. Really, really helpful, that, Dennis. So I'm just going to see really quickly if we've got any questions before we move on. I don't think so. Amazing. And it's probably worth mentioning, Dennis, that it talked about respecting the availability before, or overriding calendar availability, but it still respects Chronify interviews. Is that right? Or would it override those as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. And yes, we still respect the Chronify booked interviews. Otherwise, you're going to have double booked interviews, and that's not a great candidate experience, of course.
Cool. So you know that if an interview is booked through Chronify, there's no way that it'll be double booked through Chronify.
Exactly.
Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so next up, we wanted to talk about panel interviews. Our next poll and my next question to you all is, how do you manage your panel interviews?
Very curious about this one.
Mine was, again, the tried and tested. Back in the day, it was always to and fro for me.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of back and forths.
And particularly when you work in agency, you're not just asking for a hiring manager's time, but you're also asking for a candidate's time as well, which kind of makes it double complicated.
Yeah, that's what I get a lot as well in the conversation I'm having with your peers.
Yeah.
See that most of them get availability from hiring managers individually. Let's see if there are more answers coming in.
That seems to be the popular choice.
Yeah.
Get availability from hiring managers individually. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for your responses. So I can definitely recall a time I was hiring for, I think it was an IT director position for an SME, a small to medium business, about 100 people big. And my main stakeholders at the time were the CEO, CFO, and the CTO, which were impossible diaries to coordinate. So even though I had like a really, really, really good relationship with those people, we knew each other really well, loads and loads of trust, it was just getting availability, just wasn't something that a please or a thank you could fix. So my question now to you, Dennis, is tell me, how is Chronify going to make my life easier when I'm trying to arrange panel interviews with stakeholders who are incredibly busy?
That's a great question. I think we touched upon the going off books a little bit in the last bit of the demo I just showed you. What we do a lot as well is we try to educate hiring managers on their calendar hygiene. We now have a dedicated customer success person on board as well, Ilya, and she's fully focused on helping out clients achieve a better candidate experience by also having hiring managers a better calendar hygiene. So we've made a lot of documentation on it. So if you're listening right now and you want more information about that, just shoot me a message on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn and Mark's LinkedIn will be at the end of the webinar as well. So don't hesitate to reach out. If you've done all that work and your hiring managers do have their calendars up to date, they can also use group scheduling, your recruiters, to coordinate these interviews. How you can do that is basically, I'll choose my template within Greenhouse for the panel interview. And what you can do with Chronify, you can use the group functionality. And it's kind of like a template for groups and for this interview. You set it up once. It takes you 5-10 minutes to set it up. And once you set up all the parameters and the title and description, you can just reuse that every time. So it just takes you 2 clicks to create an invite link. And you send it out to the candidate. And this is what they will see. Again, availability. This time it's availability for the next 14 days. You want to give at least enough options to your candidate, of course. I'm just going to pick the first option that's out there.
And that's, Dennis, just sorry to interrupt quickly, that's the availability of all those people who are going to be involved in that panel interview, right?
That's a great question. So the panel interview, how I have set it up this time is I require 3 people from this group. So I can change it as well. I can say I require all of these people to be available. I can add in more names. It could be a bigger pool of people, of 10 people. You need 2 or 3 people to be available. Usually it's 3 people, but yeah, it can differ per role, of course. And then in the group rules, I set the parameters. So this could be an on-site or virtual interview. And the duration of it can be different. And you can enable, disable rescheduling from here for the candidate as well. It's very helpful because a lot of roles you just need to reuse each time for a bunch of candidates. So if you have a high volume of candidates, you can just reuse this group rule each and every time. And if you don't want to use the personalized link, you can even use the public link. So you can send that link out to multiple candidates all once, and they just pick a time slot that works for them. But like I said, it's still respecting the Chronify booked interviews and has real-time availability, so you never have double booked interviews. Perfect. Amazing. And one other thing I wanted to mention, a lot of companies choose to regulate also how many interviews hiring managers do on a weekly or daily basis. So you even out the workload a little bit, and your hiring managers are not overloaded with interviews, especially in high volume recruitment. And that's something you can also already build in for each group rule. So let's say your hiring managers are only allowed to do 3 interviews a week. That's something you can build in as well. We can help out with that.
Okay, Dennis, we've had 2 questions. One is, how can I change group rules and how much time does it take? And another question is, how many groups can be created?
That's a good question. So how long it takes to, let me just address the first question. How long does it take to create or change the group rules? It's fairly straightforward. I think it takes you 1 or 2 minutes if you're handy with it. You can just, go through all the options here and click save, then you've done it. So I think it takes you about 1 or 2 minutes, but oftentimes what we do to get clients started with this, because the first time doing it, it takes you maybe half an hour, is we help out with setting up the group. So Ilya, like I mentioned before, she's dedicated to set up our customers for success. She will help out with the first dozen group rules. And the second question, how many groups can you have? This is just an example of our test environment, as much as you want, basically.
So you could envisage even a large business with lots of different roles that they recruit for, with lots of different groups of people involved in that interviews, and lots of different stages of interviews where there's different times and lengths and people and sequences. There's a rule for every single one, right?
Exactly. Yeah. For each, that's usually what happens. They separate each group rule on different roles that they're hiring for. And sometimes you also need for a one interview, you need panelists from different departments. That's something you can also set up with group rules. You can combine different departments within one interview. That's also a unique feature that we have to Chronify.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I'm just double checking to see if we've got any other questions. Sorry, did I interrupt you then?
No, I'm all set.
Cool. Okay.
Hope that's clear.
I think so. Thank you for that. So the next poll and the next question that I want to ask everyone, we're talking a little bit about candidate experience now. So how do you ensure a great candidate experience?
It's a great question.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this.
Yeah,
I'm hoping it's all of the above for everything.
Well, also do you get much conferences, right? Where we're going to every time. People speak about candidate experience a lot since last year. So
yeah, I was just about to ask, do you get a lot of people talking about it in demo calls and things like that? Do you find it's of interest to people at the moment?
Yeah, I think if I ask for requirements, it's definitely in the top 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Right. So the popular choice, it seems, I'll just wait for it to come in, is a swift, quick hiring process as well.
Makes sense.
It absolutely does. I mean, in my humble opinion, in my humble opinion, candidate experience is the number one most important aspect of recruitment for me. I get unprompted feedback on how much people enjoy interviewing with us at Chronify, even candidates who are unsuccessful, those who we've rejected for whatever reason, who aren't successful, still say to us how much they've enjoyed the experience of interviewing with us. For me, a positive experience increases the likelihood of someone accepting an offer, but a less than perfect experience means they're more likely to consider other offers. In a very, very competitive industry, I've always thought I don't want to lose out on someone because of something that I have control over. My vision, what I'm always aiming for is, well, if this is what it's like working here, if this is what it's like interviewing here, imagine what it's like working here. That's what I'm always aiming for. So my question for you, Dennis, is how can I improve the candidate experience with Chronify?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you can do it in multiple ways. I think most importantly is keeping track of all the candidates that you have, of course, with the reporting, but also what are they seeing when they receive an invite from you. So I think I briefly showed you guys already before, but let me just go in there. I've invited myself for an interview. So this is what an interview invite could look like on a candidate side. This is what they receive. There's a description that you can change, and also the title of the interview. So this is the panel interview. You can change that for each role. For example, you can say for each role what it is. So that's one part of it. It's very consistent. You always get the same invites and recognizable. And also, if they open up your link, it will also have your personalized branding in there. So they know exactly it's coming from you, from your company. And uniquely to Chronify, it's always a personalized link. So it could even include their name in the interview title. And what else is important is also keeping track of your candidates. Which ones are you interviewing at the moment? But before I jump into reporting, I think you had another poll question, right?
That's right, yeah. A little bit of a sidestep, but still definitely on the topic of candidate experience as well. That's right. We're keen to know from everyone, how do you keep track of your candidates in interviews as well?
Yeah.
Scheduling tools, ATS, Google Sheets, spreadsheets is a common one.
Yeah.
Because we have had a question, Dennis, that came through, by the way, which is,
go ahead,
can reporting results be downloaded? That's something that would be interesting to cover.
we'll cover that in a second. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you keep track of candidates and interviews? And the results are ATS
50-50.
and spreadsheets.
Yeah.
50-50, ATS and spreadsheets. Good to hear that no one said I don't, which is positive. So amazing, thank you. Okay, so my question to you then, Dennis, is on the reporting side. How does it work? How do you have more visibility on candidates that are progressing or moving through interview processes? And a question that came from the group is, can reports be downloaded as well?
Yes, that's a great question. I would love to show you the request page. So let me just go in here. This is an overview of all your requests. And it could be your request or all within your organization. A lot of times, definitely in local governments, they have different departments. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we have different organizational units, we call them internally, but basically departments or teams within your company. And you can also filter on them separately. So that's a really good way to separate the different departments within or other companies within your company and filter on the amount of interviews you're doing. So this is a great way also to see how many requests that are still pending. You don't want to miss out on candidates, of course, because sometimes if you're using Google Spreadsheets or your ATS, they're not made to keep a really good overview of all your candidates, at least from my experience. And this is a great way to see all your candidates you're currently interviewing and that you've sent out a scheduling link to, but they haven't picked a time yet. So based on this information, you can decide, actually, this person, I've sent the scheduling link on the 4th of July. That's already a pretty while ago. Maybe I should follow up with this person because I really want to have this person in front of my hiring manager. And we can also filter on tags, and tags is a very interesting one. For example, if you're scheduling for a specific role and you want to know exactly how many of those you've done in the last 30 days, that's something you can do with Chronify as well. You can filter on the role if you added that to each interview or add it to the group rule. You have a standardized for this group. You can have a standardized tag, and then you can export this. So that was also the question from audience. Can I export this data? Yes, you can. Only 30 days in the back to the future, I want to say.
On brand.
And so you need to basically, if you want to do it consecutively every 30 days or every month, you can put a date in your calendar to export this data every month, so you have a clear overview of it. Any questions on this?
Just double checking for any more questions. I don't think so. That's great. Thanks for that, Dennis. Really, really helpful. Okay. And the next thing that we want to talk about today is implementations and integrations as well. So the final poll for us is, how important is an integration when it comes to a new tool? I'm hoping it is. I'm sure, Dennis, you talk to a lot of TA people who use a lot of different tools in their roles.
Definitely, yeah. Recruiters nowadays, either they don't have any tools or they are packed with a lot of tools. There's no there's no in between nowadays.
Yeah, that's fair. And we see the results here. So somewhat important needs to be the most popular response there. And I guess it does to some respect. It is, and it probably depends slightly on kind of the tech stack or the infrastructure that you might be working with yourself. I know myself, I've struggled with kind of SaaS overkill or SaaS fatigue almost. I'm sure there's a pun in there somewhere, but I guess what I'm interested to know from you, Dennis, is how Chronify integrates and how it's making recruiters' lives easier whilst perhaps avoiding that SaaS overkill.
Yeah, just to give you some background information, I know you already know this, Mark, but for our audience, is that historically we've been powering 75 different ATS providers with scheduling capabilities. And that's on our API side of the business. Today, we're talking about the scheduler, the off-the-shelf SaaS product. And we see that a lot of ATS providers just use a tiny bit of the capabilities that we have, especially around panel interview scheduling. That's something a lot of ATS providers are lacking. And that's basically the gap that we're trying to fill with the scheduler. So if you look at this list I'm showing you right here, Bamboo HR, Greenhouse, SmartRecruiters, Lever, Workday, those are the ones that have a full integration with Chronify, or we fully integrate with, basically. And that means that you can schedule directly from the ATS, but also it will trigger any existing workflows, feedback forms, scorecards, hiring kits, however you want to call them. Every ATS has their own name attached to it, but it will work seamlessly together. But then again, if your ATS is not on here and you want to know if it integrates with yours, what we do have is a Chrome extension of an Edge extension that works on top of any application. So you don't have to leave that application in order to create a self-scheduling link. That will already save you a tremendous amount of time. So I also encourage people that if you even don't see your SaaS platforms on here today, we can still work together with it.
So it works with a tool, but you don't need a tool to make it work, right?
That's really well put. Yeah.
How long does it take to set up?
So for the setup, it usually takes about a month. So we have I actually wanted to show you guys a quick overview how that looks like. So Ilya, I'm going to mention her name again. Sorry, Ilya. She made this nice overview of how long it takes to implement Chronify. So usually the planning takes about 2 weeks. We'll go over the process mapping, the onboarding call, what are the goals and the metrics.
Sorry, I can't see that on my screen. I'm not sure if you've got it at the front.
I'm just sharing my web browser. Sorry about that.
That's right.
This will help.
There we go. That's it. Got it.
Yeah, this is our one-pager on timeline to launch, meaning it takes about 1 month approximately to do all the planning and the workshops and the technical setup and the onboarding. This is very, very fast. If I look at other tools out there, competitors like GoodTime, they take about either 3 to 6 months to set up. And with Chronify, it's much less. That's because it's a very simple tool. It's very easily to transfer the information to another person, say, hey, this is how we work with Chronify. It's not rocket science. That's also one of our goals, to really make it a user-friendly and simple tool to use. The planning usually takes about 2 weeks. So we do some process mapping. We start off, how does your process look like right now? And what's the ideal situation with Chronify? And that's also one of the goals and the success metrics is aligned with that. So a lot of times companies look at time to hire, time to fill, probably very familiar with those terms, Mark. And because like last time you presented Chronify's metrics, you're very proud of them. So I remember.
Absolutely.
And the second part of it is the technical setup. So usually with the IT admin, we'll go over the connecting everyone simultaneously to Chronify platform. We call it an AD sync, Active Directory sync. So everyone within your workspace has a Chronify account simultaneously. So no one has to go to a manual sign-up flow of the hassle of installing or downloading Chronify. That's all done automatically. So once we've done that, we'll do a kickoff session with either the hiring managers and the recruiters, or both of them usually. And we give enough information so they can get going, but also after this first month, we keep on educating them with resources and documentation afterwards. Usually what happens is that people start looking for a scheduling tool at the worst time possible, when the volume is very high and they need to hire a lot of people, so they don't have any time to implement something. So I always advise, if you're expecting or you're having a slow period, then look at the scheduling tool like Chronify. and start talking to us, because then we have enough time to implement everything before the storm hits.
So yeah, being prepared ahead of time. If, for example, you knew that there was a lot of roles coming up, or as you say, if there was a downtime in recruitment, it's better to be prepared and do this early, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because nowadays a lot of recruiters are tasked with the task of scheduling interviews. They don't have the luxury anymore of basically coordinators scheduling all their interviews. That luxury is gone now, because a lot of those people are laid off, and now all the heavy lifting is done by the recruiters, but they need to do a lot of other things, right? They have to look at resumes, they do need to do sourcing, and also give a great candidate experience and employee relationships. So all of that combined, you want to cut out as much as admin work as possible. And this is, I think, a great way to do it.
Great. And you're right on that subject. It is, it's challenging for recruiters at the moment. One of the things I find with new SaaS products is there's often quite a heavy upfront cost. So what are the pricing options for a product like this?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. So we, like I think I mentioned in the beginning as well, but I'm going to repeat it anyways, is that we have an active user-based pricing, meaning you only pay for what you use. So everyone within your company can be connected to a Chronify with an account for free, and you only start paying for the ones that actually use it. Meaning, if you have an interview amount of, let's say, 50 interviews, but only 10 of them, 10 of hiring managers are conducting them, you only pay for 10 people. And they're interchangeable. So each month you can have 5 different people conducting interviews, and you don't have to do any user management or seat management, what you call with, for example, Calendly. And let me share a screen of the pricing page real quick. Because we have some information on that, just very open on our website. Go to chronify.com/pricing. You have the API and the scheduler separated, of course. I will talk about the scheduler today. So these are the scheduler pricing. It starts off with the pay-as-you-go model. It's very low entry. The first users are only $15 per month. So if you have 3 recruiters and let's say 3 hiring managers in your team, you're only paying for 6 active users if they all are part of a scheduled interview in that month. And then we move on to the annual pricing for business and enterprise. That's $5.99 billed annually per month. And this is for up to 50 active users. Then again, each additional user will become less expensive. So for the business, it's $10, and for enterprise, even $5 for any additional active users.
Cool. That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, really insightful, that, Dennis. Really insightful. And I thought it'd be worth opening the questions up to the floor. Does anyone have anything that they wanted to ask about anything? Ideally recruitment and scheduling, but any other questions from anyone?
So Mark, we have a question on the Q&A, but I've also been sent a question. So we've got one question from somebody in the audience, which says, do you have an extension for Outlook? Which I'm going to get answer live, which is lovely. And then I'll ask the other one.
Perfect. Yes, we do have an extension for Outlook. Sorry, I haven't prepared that one today, but I will open up quickly so we can show it to you. So if you don't have an ATS and you're working from Outlook to send out availability or request availability currently by manually scheduling in and doing the whole calendar comparison, you can also eliminate that with Chronify, even if you don't have an ATS. So what I usually do is I open up my templates. You can also set up templates within Outlook. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with that, but it's a great way to standardize your messaging a little bit. And then again, we have the Chronify extension, but this time in Outlook. Have the same functionality as in the Chrome extension or Edge, and you can schedule for yourself, someone else, or a group. A lot of times what happens as well is that people use their public link within their signature or within their email templates, so you don't have to create for each individual self-scheduling link. But if you want to do that, it's a great candidate experience because And again, at the end of clicking on the link, the candidate then again don't have to fill in their name and email address, just like with Calendly. So just to give you a quick example, I create an invite link. It will paste automatically into Outlook, will capture the candidate's email address automatically. So within a few clicks, you've created a self-scheduling link. That's it. That's how it works in Outlook.
Okay, fabulous. And then our second question is also to do with Outlook and the calendar function in Outlook. They've asked, they already use Scheduling Assistant in Outlook, so why would they need something like Chronofire's product?
Okay. Yeah, the Scheduling Assistant in Outlook, I'm not 100% sure how it works, but a lot of times you still need to request availability from the candidate to make sure they're available around these times. And with Chronofire, it's a lot more about the candidate, about their respecting their times. And you're sending out availability from either from yourself or from other people, or even groups of people. And that's something you cannot do with other tools like Outlook's integrated scheduling.
Great. Thanks, Dennis. Really, really helpful. Okay. Well, I guess with that, before we wrap up, I guess I wanted to ask a few kind of open-ended questions for the group. Is this something you can relate to? Do your hiring managers' diaries constantly change? Are you struggling with panel interviews? Could you do with improving the candidate experience or your time to schedule? So it's about time to fill, time to hire, but time to schedule as well. The truth is, we've given you a really short, sharp snapshot of the product today. We've shown you the car and how fast it can drive, but you really need to see under the bonnet to properly understand it. The opportunity now for everyone here is to speak to Dennis and the rest of the sales team to see how Chronofire fits into your own workflow. And I'd really, really encourage everyone to do just that. Our LinkedIn account, as Dennis mentioned, will be shared with you as well. And just before we finish up, everyone here will get an email from us with the recording of this webinar to share with colleagues or people in your network. And we'll also share some information about what we've got coming up this month, including future webinars and our highly anticipated candidate expectation report, our annual report.
Excited for that one.
Yep. Yes, definitely. And also, please don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and our blog posts as well, really, and say hello to us all. Have I missed anything, Dennis, do you think?
No, I think you covered everything. And I also want to thank Kat for the technical support here today. And for Julia for the great idea of hosting and doing this webinar. And yeah, thanks so much for my team and you also, Mark, for co-hosting.
Thank you to you too. Honestly, really appreciate it. So yeah, final thank you from myself, Dennis and Kat for attending today. Hope to speak to you all again. Thank you so much.
Speak soon.